contains discussions of suicide, gun violence, PTSD, and sexual trauma, which may be distressing or triggering for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to eXp CultureCast, eXp Realty's official diversity, equity, and inclusion podcast. I'm your host, Cody Gilkison, the visionary leader behind eXp's DEI strategy. I believe that we all have a story to tell, and that's where this show really shines. We are a vibrant tapestry of diverse backgrounds and experiences, and that's our superpower. In each episode, we'll sit down with thought leaders, industry experts, and change makers who are driving meaningful conversations and actions in the realms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. From personal stories of triumph to deep dives into systemic challenges, CultureCast is your compass in navigating the complex landscape of DEI. This is CultureCast, the bi-weekly podcast about what makes us us. Hey everybody, welcome. This is season 2, episode 3 of eXp CultureCast, and today I'm thrilled to have Reggie Moore with us. He's the National Director of Resources at eXp Military Network, and we are capping off this beautiful, powerful military month that we've had this year with all the great military network content, and we're also plugged right into the Healthy Mind Collective for Mental Health Awareness Month, which is also this month. So what better way to tie those two things up and have a conversation about disabled veterans and specifically PTSD. So Reggie, can you briefly introduce yourself to folks who don't know you?
Oh, yes. My name is Reggie Moore. I am the National Director of Resources at eXp Military Network. And also I work in the commercial division as a commercial advisor. And yeah, it's been a blast being at eXp, I tell you.
Yeah. It's really great. And, you know, for folks that don't know, our eXp Military Network is a group that's open not just to veterans, not just to active duty service members, but also to spouses, also to supporters, also to allies. And an even bigger demographic is just anybody with the common sense to know that you can learn something from the military community, right?
Big
I tell
time.
people all the time, any one of them military network masterminds, you're going to learn something you can apply in your business, and it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, right?
Absolutely, indeed.
We're putting together a retrospective for the CultureCast. We're a little over a year old now on the CultureCast, and it's funny because earlier this month, to start the month or military month, we had Deanna Dobsloff on here for to talk about military month. And in all of these episodes, 37 episodes in, Deanna's the one that made me cry.
Oh, wow.
So I could get a little passionate about my military community, right? I'm somebody, people have seen this on the episode about Deanna, but I'm somebody that never really felt a connection to folks in the military. I just didn't, because I have different political ideals in the way that I live my life. And it's really been an exercise in opening myself up to more experiences that I normally would discount. I'm also someone who comes from a family where nobody who was still living in my family when I was a kid was in the military. I have no family,
Wow.
right, that served in the military. So it's been one of the most meaningful journeys of understanding that I've come to here at eXp, is being in a leadership position where I get to oversee eXp Military Network and really see how you guys run the show. And I tell people all the time, we have a lot of resource groups, but the one that will make you feel at home no matter where you come from is Military Network. So
Absolutely.
if you come to EXPCon, come to the military breakfast. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss it. You will make a connection with someone, even if you've struggled at every other meet and greet and happy hour and all those things. Sit down at a table and you're going to walk out with a table full of friends. Right? Happens to me every freaking year. Oh, it's so good. So tell me a little bit about your military service. What branch did you serve in? And how would you broadly characterize what that experience was like for you?
Man, good question, Cody. And by the way, brother, I appreciate you bringing me on the show. I love how the show is evolved and so many different segments and diversity within, like I said, this cast here. It has been awesome. And
Thank you so much. You know,
yeah,
you were when we put together the initial list of 10 people we wanted to get on, you were on that list of the initial 10, but we launched in May, so we couldn't quickly enough get our stuff together before
yeah,
the early episodes. It was like a friend of mine and then my two employees. It was just us trying to prove that we could do a podcast. So it was too soon to put you on, and I had to wait all the way for this month to roll back around again to get you on. But I'm glad you're finally here. Yeah.
hey, no doubt, no doubt. Of course, my name is Reggie. I served, as you see here, in the U.S. Navy, and I did one term. And the thing about my time in the Navy was, even though I did one term, I did both sides of the Navy.
Mm,
Because a lot of folks in the Navy have the air side, aviation, and service side. One is called the black shoe, one is called the brown shoe. The brown shoe is known as aviation, and the black shoe is known as surface side, right? And
mm,
that's what ships, the carriers, the frigates, the destroyers itself is on that side of the Navy.
mm,
But when I first started out, I was in the line shack. I basically was a grunt. I mean, at the bottom. What's
mm.
that song? Started from the bottom while we here.
Yeah, that's it.
That literally was me, and I launch and recover the F-18s, day in and day out, 7 days a week, and it was at NES Oceana, Virginia Beach,
Okay.
first stationed at, and it was pretty awesome. Got a chance to really know what work was truly about. um, really putting day in and day out, really respecting real true work. Not
Mm,
saying anybody else that don't do that is not working, but it's more like the machine behind everything, the thing that keeps America going
mhm,
is military, right? It's like
mm,
America's favorite sport is what, baseball or the case may be. But as you know, military, you got to have it for protection, for defense, and to keep our country sustainable. No
that's
matter the
right.
political affiliation, no matter what you may think or where you grew up, I mean, it all ties us together as one.
It's
So
true. It's true. And I think, even politics aside, this is a way for American citizens to make a career and an impact and learn skills you can't get anywhere else, right? And I
absolutely.
think that's massive. And then you zoom it out a little farther. If we didn't have a military, uh, com- country wouldn't last much longer,
Nope. Be a
right?
new republic.
That's that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, you have personal experience with PTSD. Is that true, Reggie?
Yeah, I have the symptoms of PTSD, but I can
Mm,
be honest, I have anxiety, depression. It's the whole gamut of disorders I've like I said, experienced.
mhm.
I'm one of those folks, I'm not gonna sit there and try to hide, oh, I'm fine, I'm doing well. A lot of people try to put that Superman or Superwoman cape on and figure like, oh, I'm doing great. But really, you're just hiding and masking who you truly are.
Yeah,
Um, and it plays a number on you when you get older. I could tell you, for instance, me, I'm in my 40s. Yeah, I look a certain way. Still a young buck, but I have an old soul.
right,
So I've done a lot of things, seen a lot of things, and experienced a lot of things that most folks have not.
right.
So
Yeah. So
living with it is,
how did you first realize that some of the stuff you were experiencing were PTSD symptoms?
I would say, mainly at time with family. Mainly at home, doing
Mm,
just regular things, mainly sleeping. And this is where your subconscious mind takes about, and where you're dreaming these things that are repressed in the subconscious mind. Because we're
mm,
doing the conscious world, which is see, touch, taste, and feel, but everything is the subconscious mind that operates. So what happened was, I was sleeping at night, having nightmares, waking up, and then having I would call like the warrior's guilt or the survivor's guilt. Like, why did this not happen to me instead of this other person? Why did
mm,
I not respond quick enough? And
mm,
that really played a part in my life. On top of trying to work a 9 to 5, when I first left the military, I tried to find a job. I was too qualified. I had a master's with being military, so everybody said, "Oh, you can't work. You can't do this. You're not going to fit the bill for us." So 6 months, I was unemployed. I mean, I was grinding and pounding resumes everywhere, and literally, I started my time at Bank of America on the phones, and that was a little easier for me. But I know that wasn't the end all be all, and it really came into being when I became a car salesman, where my mental health symptoms really came about. Where I was a car salesman for, like I said, 10 years, F&I manager as well for a little stint, and literally dealing with coworkers and with people. And when it comes down to, let's say, civilians, people are quick to say stuff out their mouth and don't realize, hey, you need to be careful what you're saying, because that can put somebody in a bad situation. And I never forget it. There was one manager that said something that's very rude and curt and not professional. And literally, I had to stop what I was doing because I was blacking out. I was going to that point where I was going to go there, and it would not been pretty. I would not be here today. And I had to calm myself down and walk away because those situations. So fast forward, I remember at the time my prior significant other was telling me, you need to get some help because this is really troubling your life. So that's when I sought help at the VA. Went to mental health treatments, sat down and did the cognitive behavior therapy. That's where they talk about mindfulness, different solution oriented things. And it started to help me on my path. But one thing with mental health is this, Cody, there's not a silver bullet.
That's right. Right.
It's not a silver bullet process. This thing takes years of treatment.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can still come back. It can relapse on somebody. And I tell people this, give people grace, even if they did not serve the military, because you never know what somebody may be suffering from in their life or in their childhood as well. So
yeah, that's very serious and very real. And we also, I encourage people all the time that if you take that gigantic step to accept help and seek treatment, don't make the mistake of thinking that the first person you go to for treatment is necessarily the right one for you, right?
Yep.
You have to find somebody who's going to culturally understand you and be able to relate. And that is not always one of those you can judge a book by its cover kind of deals, right? I tell people all the time, and I think anybody can relate to this, but I had been to therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy is what I did as well, because I have a pretty severe anxiety disorder and depression and ADHD, and those things compound each other to make it where I need medication to be able to live my life, right? And sort my thoughts and be a professional, right? That's not for everybody. Not everybody needs medication, but in order to have my medication, I need to be attending therapy. And for a while, I was seeing a guy who was a gay guy from the same area as me. The guy, we could have been twins, right?
wow.
But the guy was not giving me what I needed when it came to therapy. It was not reflective. I think he had an idea that he knew the type of person I was so well, and then he would infer that type of thing on me. That's what the point I'm trying to make here is that, sometimes just because you go to see a therapist who says, I'm someone who specializes in my case, LGBTQ mental health, or in this case, serving our veterans and people who have served and may be suffering from PTSD, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the one that's going to click it for you. I looked again for therapy, and the first time I had a real breakthrough is when I stopped going to this guy and I started seeing a 92-year-old Jewish woman who could not have been on paper more different than me, but who understood me culturally because she'd done the work. And I no longer see her now. We moved away, but it opened the door to me to accept that therapy actually could help me, and it wasn't just something I was going to do to get my medication and check the form to say that I did that. So it's always really, really important as a step in your mental health to take a step back and assess the work I'm doing with this therapist. What is it doing for me? Do I feel like I'm taking something from it? How often do they give you a nugget of, oh my God, I never thought of it that way? That's what therapy should be doing for you. If you're never having those moments, you should look again.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, and I'm also someone, I suffer from PTSD. And I'm never served in the military. It's a different, experience, but PTSD is something that can affect people for a whole lot of different reasons, I think. And unfortunately with that, what we see a lot is PTSD is categorized as the type that the military has and everyone else.
Yep.
And both of those buckets are also so broad. You can't just make an assumption that someone in the military suffers from PTSD because they specifically saw something violent happen that scarred them forever. There's a million reasons you could have PTSD. It could be from panic attacks that have nothing to do with violence. It could be from, sexual assault. It could be from a number of things. So I just want to crack that nut open a little bit, and let's talk about how this isn't a one size fits all. Everybody's experience is different, right? So in that vein, what have you seen that are some like common misconceptions specifically about folks who have served who have PTSD?
Ooh, Cody, I love that question. Thank you, because I want to bring down the myths. One of the things that come down to post-traumatic stress disorder is combat, non-combat. Combat, of course, seeing, witnessing things that happen that was violent or, let's say, offensive or harassment. And then you have the other one is non-combat, right? Where you have MST, military sexual trauma. But one of the misnomers that people, I would say, commercialize or talk about, even within our own community, you don't have PTSD unless you serve combat, or you had to have served a full 20 years in retirement in order to get mental health. That is a crock of junk, to be, I'll keep it nice, but a crock of mess. Because of the fact that you have so many people out here who have dealt with so many things while they serve, that trauma does not say, oh, because I was in the military, did combat, it's less traumatic if I was off base. Trauma is trauma. It does not matter. I mean, I've talked to men and women who dealt with sexual trauma. I've talked to women who were pregnant while they were pregnant who dealt with sexual trauma. I talked to men who dealt with sexual trauma who worked a government job, high paid job, 9 to 5, who had some life-threatening diseases. And I'm talking about some big diseases. And they said, you know what? I can't have a normal life no more because I caught this diseases now, because I was unfortunately assaulted. My life has never been the same. They can't even talk to their own family about it. They can't even talk to their own brother about it. Those are the calls. Those are the things that we have to get out in the air and the open about, because end of the day, it could have been your brother, it could have been your sister, could have been your mom, dad who dealt with it. And I'm talking about even some older folks who have trauma. And because it grew up, let's say, during the time of the Vietnam era, where they say a man's a man, a woman's a woman, don't say anything, or you look like you a pansy about talking about it. No. You need to talk about it, because what happens is if you don't talk about it, it ends up being a big old pressure and you bust. And then you end up passing it down to your children. And guess what? You have generational trauma going on. You done domino effect your whole entire family generation if you don't get yourself taken care of for therapy.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
So important.
Yeah. Your son sees you struggle, and then he struggles in the same way, and he doesn't even understand why. Right.
Don't understand why. And I tell you, Cole, there was a man 2 years ago. I was helping with some education, because I do on the side help with veterans education on just benefits, just education. And I never forget, this guy called my phone and he said, "Hey, Reggie, I'm a school teacher, and 8th grade, I've been getting harassed by my staff. I was a Marine combat, Marine for medical purposes, and literally I've witnessed a lot, dealt with a lot. But on top of that, they're going through a divorce, separation, divorce, and also custody battles with his child."
Mm.
And literally, we sitting there on the phone one day. I never forget it, Cody. And this man tells me, "Reggie, I'm not feeling good today, brother." I said, "Hey, man, what's going on?" He's literally in the car and it's quiet. I said, "Why are you so quiet for? What is going on?" Something is very ominous. Just don't sound right. And you get that spirit of discernment, you pick it up.
Mhm.
I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He said, "Hey, man, I'm just sitting here thinking, man. What are you thinking about?" I'm thinking about just sometimes not being here." I said, "Listen here, do you have anything in the car with you?"
Mhm.
He took a pause. And then he said, "Reggie, I do have something in the car with me." I said, "Okay, this is what I need you to do. Is it in your hand or is in the glove compartment, or in the seat? Is in my hand." I said, "Oh, okay. Copy that. What I need you to do is whatever's in your hand, I need you to take that clip out that gun, that bullet out the chamber if you already put it in there. And I need you to take it out right now. Take that clip, take that bullet, throw in the back of the seat. I need you to take that gun, lock it up in your glove compartment. And brother, I'm gonna stay on the phone with you until you get to the VA hospital."
Mhm.
And he's crying, and I'm staying on the phone with him. I had to take all my clients, all my people, and I had to push him off. Hey, I didn't care if it was a big commercial though. Nope, I don't care right now. I got to save this man's life because this guy is somebody's son, somebody's husband at the time, and somebody's father. And we stayed on the phone about an hour and a half, and he got himself to the VA hospital.
Mhm.
And I said, "Hey, I need to hear that nurse pick up that phone and that you are checked in, brother." She picks up, he gives the phone to the nurse, and she said, "Hey, he's checked in." I said, "Copy that. I just want to make sure he got there safe." And literally that was that. But he stayed there for 2 weeks. And I'm
Wow.
gonna tell you how powerful that worked with him. I told him, I said, "Brother, I want you to stay in contact with us. So at least once a week I could call this vet." Things started turning around for this man. So fast forward 6 months, 8 months later, he got his benefits. He got where he deserved. Now, on top of that, he won his lawsuit against that school system that was harassing him. And he
Mhm.
had PTSD in his records and was trying to get therapy. And they would not allow him to get therapy because he was at school. So he won that case. Then guess what? He was able to start his life over again. He called my phone. He broke down and said, "Reggie, I appreciate you, brother, for listening to me. It wasn't about the benefits. It was about somebody that listened, that cared. Because in the day, I could have said, you know what? Right now, I'm busy. I don't have time. Maybe can I call you back an hour later from now?" No, no, no. Something told me, get on this phone, stay on this phone with this man. This brother needs help. This man here, if I don't get off this, if I get off this phone, his daughter's gonna be missing a father. And I can't sleep with that at night. I cannot
Mhm.
do that. No way. No way. So
I'm just glad he knew and had the wherewithal to call you in that situation. It's
yeah,
so important for us to build our community and our network and have somebody that you can call.
yeah,
Yeah, man, that's a hell of a story, Reggie. I think everybody knows that you're the kind of guy that I, would call in that situation, and you know, appreciate you. I want to bring up. I saw in the news, it was last week or the week before last, that the VA has changed its rules on accepting folks for treatment that were discharged for reasons due to mental health, and also for people who were discharged during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, for being LGBTQ plus, and they've extended those services now to people. So I just want to highlight that a little bit, that the VA has just cracked a big nut that we've been waiting for a really long time, where now those folks who were ineligible will be eligible, even if they were discharged. If they can say, this discharge, the reason I was discharged is due to a mental health emergency that I was having, they can now receive the same services as someone who was honorably discharged. So I don't know. Had you seen that article, that news that had come out of the VA a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I read about a little bit about that one, but it also too about folks who were discharged due to mental health because of the PTSD,
Right.
because of the bad behavior. But that's the thing where this person that was in, let's say you have the sailor that's in the Navy, good sailor, exceptional EP awards, always did a great job, but because of their, let's say choice in their sexual preference, or because of a situation that occurred that pushed them to uh, become, let's say, mentally, let's say, incapable of dealing with certain things, they had to be released. And this is
Right.
where I'm glad they're taking it and they're cracking that nut to come back. So you know what? We have vets 2000, 1990, 1980 that served, and on their discharge DD-214, they have other than honorable, or they
Other
have
than honorable
medical.
discharge. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And another thing too is when you have other than honorable, you can still pursue your benefits and things with the VA there, or VHA, which is Veterans Healthcare Administration. Because a lot of people think, well, if I got this, I can't do it. Now, the one that's tough is, we call it the bad chicken dinner, bad conduct discharge, right? But some vets don't know this. You can go back and appeal those based upon the circumstance. And Cody, you brought up a good point. This is where it goes into the fact that, hey, they're cracking back into people who served, who was, part of LBGQT community, who have different preferences. And just because of that command officer has their own mind frame, oh, well, you're not being the way it should be. Like, no, that's a bunch of mess.
Right.
They can still get the job done no matter what.
It's true.
So,
Yeah.
it just I'm glad they're taking steps to get that taken care of,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. That's the person who had shared the article with me said that there's somebody that reviews these cases for the VA, and how often they see something that's very clear. Someone lashed out at a commanding officer or took some action because they were in the middle of a mental health crisis. They were having a panic attack. They were having a PTSD episode, and if it wouldn't have been for those mental traumas, which they got from being in the military, they wouldn't have
Yep.
lashed out. So now they're able to review those cases with a wider, like, this really is based on mental health, something that came as a direct result of them serving in the military. We cannot deny them anymore. And I think it's a big step, and it's a big move, and it shows the sort of forward progression of us understanding culturally mental health better. I think a VA is a great barometer of where society stands on how we feel about mental health. So that's a really good thing, actually.
Absolutely. And I'm glad they're doing it. And also to the VA, they have their own communities for, let's say, the LBGQT community as well. And I'm glad they have that, because you have your community for women, African Americans. There needs to be different departments, because you can't put everybody in one box.
No, I
You
can't.
can't.
Right.
So I'm glad they're making steps to doing that. It's really awesome.
Yeah, right. So talking about receiving help, what was your experience like when you first sought treatment for your mental health stuff, for your PTSD symptoms and anxiety?
Man. Well, at first, the VA, before they got a little bit better with their steps, is one of the things I was noticing was they at first put me into like a group setting, right?
Mm.
And it's about 10, 12 other veterans in a little classroom setting. And I really didn't like it. To be honest, I thought it was too, I would say, it was not as private. I need a private setting to talk about what I was dealing with. You can't put everybody in one box and everybody talk about what's going on at one time. And
Yeah.
I can tell a lot of those veterans that was there, men and women, that they wanted more of a private setting. And they didn't feel comfortable. So I literally, after that 45-minute session, I told that psychologist or counselor, I said, hey, look, I need to get a one-on-one setting, because there's things I need to talk about that I don't feel comfortable talking out in the open, being emotional about. I really need to have a safe space. And literally from there, I got a one-on-one for the next 8 weeks or so, and it was going through the cognitive behavior treatment. And this is probably back, oh God, probably about 5 years ago. I've been going mental health for 5 years straight now,
Nice.
and I've been through probably about 3 different psychologists. And you're right, Cody. You got to have somebody that relates to you in your life culturally. My psychologist now, she served in the army. She was combat, Iraq vet. Um, she has her own trauma, and she was telling me 100% I dealt with my own traumas, but I can relate to her, and she's an African American woman.
Mm.
So she served, African American, and also she's a woman at the same time. So she knows the complexities of dealing with things, right? Even though she served the army.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, she's I'll be honest, once a month I get my therapy. I sit down a whole hour and she goes from A to Z. How you doing? And she asks me how I'm progressing. She'll give me homework to do every single time, and I have to complete it. And this is to make sure I'm doing the work as well. It's not just going to therapy and talking, but you doing the work.
Yeah, there
You're
is some
applying.
level that you really need there of somebody that's going to hold you accountable to actually do the work and not just nod your head during the session. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh boy. Yes,
So,
indeed.
we talked a little bit about CBT, but is there any other like type of therapy or type of treatment that you found was really effective for you, something that got through?
Man, well, I'll tell you several things. I've kind of went more on the East philosophies, or I'll say spiritual science type way of
Mm,
doing it. So I study Reiki levels 1 and 2,
nice.
which more deals with the chakras, the 7 of them, but there's even more than that, of course. The 7 spinning wheels. I don't want to go all to the woo, as some people have their
Yeah.
own thoughts, perceptions. But anywho, I got certified in that. But I did it because I want to know more about my energetic body, my astral body, because we're much more than just one facet of a human being. We're many facets. So I need to
Mhm.
break those things down on a deeper level and go into understanding my shadow self. And I call it shadow work. Now, a lot of people say, oh God, there's some evil. No, no, no. Shadow work is things that you repress behind yourself or your inner child, right?
Mhm.
So I got a journal. I went online on Amazon, bought a shadow book, and wrote down things from childhood all the way from military to now that I've dealt with. And it's your own therapy. And it really, really, really helped me. And then I can tell you, Cole, the biggest one that really helped me was I went to a Native American tribe, and this was 2 years ago. And real Native American brothers and sisters, they welcomed me in. Actually was part of that tribe. I'm actually officially part of the tribe.
Nice.
But yeah, so went there. I had to give my whole spiel, my mental health, PTSD, my anxiety, depression, and other symptoms I'm dealing with. And I had to go through a vetting process on how they was going to deal with it. So it wasn't where I just sign up, I go in. No, they really had to review my information and talk with me. So I went to the reservation. I was there for a whole night, no food, nothing to drink outside of the sacred medicine.
Mm.
And that literally helped me tremendously for my mental health as I was doing, because I was going through a very low spot. I could be honest. At one point in my life, I did not want to be here. Um, those points where certain days you wake up and you look at your gun and you're like, you know what? Maybe the day I shoot myself and
Mm.
call it a day. Who cares?
Yeah.
And those are things where you have to really dig down deep. So I've got to do something, because if I don't, I'm going to be missed. There's a family that cares for me. There's friends that care for me, and I'm not alone. And you got to figure out a way to get out that darkness and not be by yourself, because that's what happens with mental health. You can trap yourself being by yourself. It's like that entity that traps you. You can't break it because it's attached to your aura. And when it sticks to you, you're struggling on how to break that entity off of you. But when you get by yourself and you don't get the help you need, then you don't have any type of resources. You cut yourself off.
Yeah.
So you got to realize, number one, you got to humble yourself, say, I need a help. That's the number one thing. Don't be arrogant, egotistical. Number two, don't ostracize yourself away from people. And then number three, get help by any means necessary. Everything that's, moral, spiritual, upright, and trustworthy. Do what you got to do. There's no right or wrong way. Just because somebody go to CBT doesn't make them wrong if they go to a Native American tribe for sacred medicine, or if they go to, a Buddhist temple or a Hindu temple, wherever the case may be, as long as they're getting help. That's all that counts.
If it cracks that nut, if it breaks through that blocker that you've got up, that's what anxiety and depression does to you. It makes you isolate yourself. It makes you believe that help isn't possible. It tells you things like, I could never be into Reiki, right? You don't know until you try it and see if it works for you, right? That's I have a circle of friends, and we're going to be running booths at my little hometown here, Danville, Illinois. We've got our second annual Pride Festival this weekend, and we're doing a whole Reiki opening session before we go in, so that we're open for what's to come at the booths, right? I run a nonprofit, and it's our first time being out in the public, and I'm really looking forward to the Reiki session so that we can open ourselves up for that. But yeah, I think that's I love what you talked about, isolating yourself and ostracizing yourself. It's so profound, right? Because sometimes you really can convince yourself that there aren't other options, that no one is ever going to get it. I can relate to that really deeply. Being a gay adopted kid who didn't fit in with his family in the deep South in the 90s was like, it felt like I'm never going to get out of here. Nobody's ever going to understand me. Nobody's ever going to accept me. I guess I should just try my best to be like them and suppress my inner truth so that they won't keep me out, so they'll let me in, right? And I've struggled with suicidal thoughts my entire life. And it's just something that I knew, as a kid. You read through my diary and my journal entries back when I was a kid. I kept a journal because I'm an only child. And I didn't have a lot of people to talk to, so I talked to myself a lot. And I had this real deep belief that because I was queer, because AIDS was the only thing you saw about queer people on the news, that there was not a chance I would live to see 21. I always believed that I would never make it, right? That if it wasn't by my hand, that somebody would figure it out and I'd be dragged behind a truck or tied to a fence like Matthew Shepard. Or I would die of HIV. And then, fast forward some years later, and I did survive. I found somebody that would pull me out of all of my darkness. And I got on my feet. And now, as an adult, I found my biological father's family. And I'm the first man in the line going straight. My father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather. I'm the first one who lived to 21. But, finding out that I was the first man in 4 generations to make it to the age of 21 was kind of like, ooh, there's something deeper there,
Yeah.
That sort of reopened me up to the concept of a higher power or spirituality that I had closed myself off from for a long time because of trauma that I experienced and trying to be religious and gay at the same time. I stepped away from all of that. And then I saw this and I was like, more than I believed the grass was green, I believed that I wouldn't live to 21. And then find out that this was like a generational thing that I survived and maybe broke a cycle, was huge. My father died of suicide. We say suicide. He, didn't know this was a real thing outside of movies, but my father was a heavy alcoholic and actually died playing Russian roulette. Didn't know that was a real thing that people did. And then my grandfather was shot by his girlfriend. He was cheating on his girlfriend, and the girlfriend showed up and killed him and the girl he was cheating with. And,
wow.
and the grandfather above him was suicide. So it
Oh
was,
man.
it sort of feels like when you break a cycle like that, every day after 21 feels like a gift that I need to, it's changed my mind about wanting to not be on the planet. Because what's the point? What would be the point of
Mm,
breaking this cycle just to give in later? You know what I mean? That's not how I want my history to be remembered. That's a weird thing to
no,
say. That's what keeps me on the planet, but it kind of is. Like, I think about it a lot. Like, I don't want to. I broke the cycle. We're not going to go backwards. We got to go
no,
forward.
exactly.
Yeah,
Got to go for it. And Cole, that's a lot you talk about, sir, because you said the fact that your father dealt with suicide, and of course he's not here no more. Than your grandfather as well. Man, that's a lot. That generational trauma is so deep because it passes down
so
to
real.
people, and you would not believe so many people that deal with it right now that plays in their present life, and they struggle on just relating to people, relating to family, relating to friends, co-workers, and it's just so heavy on them. They're scared to talk about it. They're
That's
scared
right.
to deal with things like this. And I tell them, said, get some help. Talk about this thing. Because I can tell you, Cody, one of the things I'm proud of you about is because you live, like I said, you have your different lifestyle. You learn to embrace who you are. You learn to embrace who you are, no matter where you grew up. Because I grew up in the South too, Bible Belt, church every day, Sunday school
That's
every
it.
day. If you don't
Yeah,
have this faith, you're doing something else, you're going to hell.
that's it.
Fire and brimstone.
Oh yeah, same.
Like,
I was a youth pastor, so I,
yeah.
I was committed. I was committed to the church. But it really is. It's a thing where um, it's not this dramatic for everyone, but for me, it was learn to not just be okay with the fact that I'm gay, but to embrace it and use it as a superpower. I
Yep.
had to, because if I didn't, and I believed the way that I was on the path to believe, based on where I grew up and how my family views it, I wouldn't be here anymore. No doubt
Wow.
about that. No doubt. Not a doubt in my mind. That's it's one of those things that makes it so crystal clear to me. I'm not a scientist. I've never studied the human brain or the differences in genetic makeup between gay individuals and straight individuals, but I can tell you that no one would have chose the path that I had, right?
Mm,
I think I had every opportunity to live the kind of life that my parents would have approved of, and I just could not do it, right? I cannot tell you how many, the percentage, if you could look back at your life like on paper and see how many hours you spent doing something. I went to bed every night with a prayer to God to either change me, make me straight, or I don't want to wake up.
mm.
And can't get locked in a cycle like that. Sometimes there comes a point where you have to realize the thing that I am is not evil. The thing that I am is just how I was made. And the thing that I am could bring me happiness if I stop getting in my own way. Yeah.
You know what? You said something where it's not evil. Not evil. It's an aspect of yourself, that
Mhm.
shadow self. Because a lot of
Mhm.
people say, well, that's something evil part. No, no, no. That's still a part of you. Your
Mhm.
shadow's still a part of you. You always gonna have a shadow self. You always gonna have something part of yourself. And the fact that you said, hey, look, it is a part of me. I'm embracing it. But on top of it, going into that darkness and realize when you see that monster, and this is when it goes to doing that self work. When you see that monster, guess what? And you face it, guess what? That little monster turns right into a little butterfly
That's
because
it.
you learn to embrace it.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Or you might have a monster chasing you, but you haven't looked clearly enough in that monster's face to recognize what it is, right? My monster
Yep.
was non-acceptance of myself, right? it
Mm.
wasn't it wasn't it's all these evil things that you are that everybody wants you to believe are evil. It was the thought that it's evil was the evil.
It's like you're running and then it's like it keeps chasing you until you face it.
Yeah. You got to turn around and face it. You do. That's not
Gotta
always
face
easy.
it.
Yeah. So let's see. We've talked about so much today. Um, let's talk a little bit about physical disability. So
Okay.
when a vet has a physical disability, how does that compound the challenges that they may be going through with PTSD?
Man, well, say for instance, if you have a vet that let's say has like limitations or limited limitations of the mobility, where it be back or radiculopathy or hip issues, the case may be, or let's say headaches, they have trouble sleeping, right?
Mm.
And if you have trouble sleeping, moving around in bed, trouble even intimacy with your partner, because that weighs on you, man and woman.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't do what you do, then guess what? You feel like you're not worthy. And then it opens up the door for infidelity. It opens up the door for all things that manifest that can go wrong in that marriage. But on top of that, you'll be able to not do things with your children. Just say, for instance, taking groceries or playing the ball, right? Your child throws you the ball, you got a busted up knee because you got hurt in the military. Whole knee reconstructed, a tear. And you can't bend down to play ball. Yet you look young, but internally your body is broken and your
Mm.
spirit's broken. And with that spirit being broken, you can't tell your son or your daughter, I can't play right now, but you're pushing to try to play with them. Or you get so upset and pissed off at them. You said, get out of here. I do not want to play right now. Or let's say pushing a lawnmower down here, right? Your neighbor's cutting grass every day, but you know that from the trauma from your body being broken up, you can't do what your neighbor does, right? Or people
Creates
look
a
at you a certain.
whole new set of triggers it's created here, right? Where somebody else wouldn't have been triggered by wanting their kid wanting to play ball or seeing somebody, but now because you've got that injury, you got a whole new set of triggers. That's a very interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
Yep, and I can tell you with migraines, I had a vet where he's a photographer, and he literally had to almost give up his business. He lost thousands of dollars from canceling appointments because his migraine is so debilitating that he literally has to be in a dark room. I mean, throwing up, getting Botox shot, nothing worked for him. And literally
Wow.
to this very day, he still struggles with it.
Hmm.
But by him exploring and his benefits and get things that he deserved, then it helped get that load off of him.
Mm-hmm.
So he could say, you know what? I don't have to put myself under the gun of meeting that appointment if I can't do it because I have a debilitating migraine
Right.
right
Yeah. And
now.
it's really odd that you would mention migraines too, because both me and my husband struggle with mental health stuff. And once we
Mhm.
finally got the correct medications, we I've I've been on every medication for every diagnosis that you can imagine, but we weren't
Wow.
treating the underlying. We were treating symptoms and not the underlying cause. Now that my meds have been right for about 4 years now, I don't have migraines anymore. Neither does my husband. We used to
Wow.
have. I used to have like at least a monthly migraine that would completely flatten me, like you're describing about this other guy. And my husband would have one maybe 3 times a week. Same thing. It was so debilitating.
Mm.
He stopped working and getting our mental health meds right. I don't know what happened there, but neither of us have migraines anymore.
Wow.
Isn't that the strangest thing? You never know
That is.
the impact. Yeah. I've still got my whole migraine kit just in
Wow.
case I get one. But now they
Better
have
have
the
it.
lovely the cooling mask that you can pull over your whole head now. That's it. That's the one.
That's the one, the cooling mask.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
man.
the cooling mask that goes over. I used to just wear the little eye masks, and those helped me a little bit. But they got the one that just completely covers your face. Oh yeah, that's the one. I'd recommend, highly recommend. You just throw it in the freezer in a Tupperware, pull it out. Anybody suffering from migraines, that's my pro tip for today. Find one full face mask on Amazon. Oh gosh. So I wanted to let's I want to ask you about building community. How important is it for vets to build a community with other vets?
Hugely important because a lot of us get out, we realize, man, I don't have that same camaraderie that I had when I served. And a
Mm.
lot of us just feel like we lost our identity or who we are as a person. and we literally just kind of get submerged in work, just working, going to work, being like a hamster in a wheel, or let's say selling houses or selling properties, and you not having a community to help keep you grounded, but also keep you motivated and keep you accountable for yourself internally, right? And that's why I say with our group at EXP Military Network, we are that camaraderie, right? We're not just realtors or commercial advisors or brokers or broker teams or whatever, that we are real people that you can relate to, because before this we had another life, which was military.
Right.
And with that, we had to learn that, hey, you need that person to help be your battle buddy to get you through those hard times. And I can tell you, with this organization, Veterans Network Champions Club, who I work with in my off time, they create an organization where vets can come to have that camaraderie again, have that place where they can speak and be themselves, where they're not looking at like they're weird or what. Because sometimes some of the conversation, I'll be honest with you, Cody, may be little morbid in our conversations with us as vets, but we're just joking. But to some of the normal population, like, okay, that dude needs to get himself checked in because he's saying some wild stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I definitely see that.
mhm.
So I want to ask you, what advice would you give to a vet that's suffering or coming into the realization that they may be suffering from PTSD? What advice would you give them?
I would say, number one, humble yourself and say, I need help. That's the number one thing. Accept saying, I need help. Accept yourself. Don't go in there saying, well, I'm this, or I was a captain, or I was a commander, because even them too, I deal with them as well. You know, they had these high positions. They still wearing their rank, but you're not your rank anymore. Your uniform is off. Who are you outside of your military insignias or your rank?
Mm,
Outside of uniform, who are as a person outside of military? Who are you as a being and a soul? But number one, getting the help you need, finding out who you are internally and spiritually, knowing who you are, not about what you do or how much you accomplished, but who you are internally. Number three, getting the help. It doesn't matter where you go, but getting help that's going to be there for you, and somebody that's going to be accountable to you. I don't care if it's your pastor, your advisor, your mentor. Getting some help somewhere that can keep you accountable
mm.
and sticking with it too. Don't not just start it and stop it. Stay consistent. It's not a overnight thing.
Yeah, I know people that are like, "Oh, I went to therapy." They literally went once, you know. Like, I got what I needed, you know. Not how this works. Not how this works.
No,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah. You certainly can get to the point in your life where you go to therapy when you need therapy. But for many of us, it's a journey. And it's, it's gonna be, you need to give yourself the time and the space to eventually come to the point where it would be possible that I think I've got this now. And then you can pull back. Right.
Yep.
That takes a long time. Right. For some people like me that are gonna be on medication probably forever, I'll probably always be in therapy. That's okay. That's okay.
Hmm.
Because right now, I'm happy with my life. Happy with my life
There
doesn't
you go.
mean, that's it. Happy with my life doesn't mean, oh, I'm past all of this, right? I found the way that I manage going to therapy, having my medication, living my life where I don't have complaints, right?
That's right.
Didn't change it.
And it works for you and your husband.
That's it.
That's
Work.
the main thing. It doesn't care what everybody else says. It matters for you and him. That's all that matters.
That's it. I mean, and with my laundry list of mental illness and generational trauma, I'm able, I'm performing at a pretty high level at work. So I would not have even guessed that I would be considered for a role like this because I just assume everybody knows I'm too crazy to do a job like this. But I'm at a place where I can do my job with a level of confidence, and I love that. That's one of the things that makes me the most happy. And my love language is helping people, and boy, do I get the opportunity to do that here, right? So
That's what I'm talking about.
yeah, it's good stuff. So I want to flip that question around the other way. What advice would you give to families and friends and people who love a vet who might be suffering from PTSD?
Mm. I would say recognize the symptoms you know, look at those symptoms, some of those emotional outbursts, some of those crying spells, some of those distant times, they're not as talkative. Ask them questions. Hey, what's going on? And not saying what's going on like, oh, I'm doing all right. No, what's really going on? How are you really feeling? And seeing them as a human being, as a soul. And then learn to give grace. Give them grace.
Yeah.
Because they have a different walk of life that they experience. Even as your wife or your husband, they have experience that you may not have lived through or dealt with. And then the next thing is, I would say, don't be judgmental. Because I've seen some families, some wives, some spouses get judgmental on that person, and that's not the time to judge them. It's not the time to,
And
because
it's never
everybody's
going to be
trauma
an
is different.
appropriate time to throw it, to use it as a weapon against them, right? Well, you're
Yep.
never going to understand because you've got that, right? And something else that I would say is, when you're being supportive of someone who has PTSD, you learn to see what the things are that trigger them, even if they don't. And you can help them avoid those things or gently encourage them through those things when they do happen. And when you're doing that, it's really, really important to not draw unnecessary attention, right? I think that can be so bad. I've seen it before where I was at Walmart once and a guy was having a full breakdown, and his wife was saying to people, just give him his space. He's having a moment. He has PTSD. And like,
oh man,
imagine how that made him feel. You know what I mean? To have a scene made about it. But it, for me, I've got friends that when in conversation something comes up that they know is going to trigger that in me, they'll just reach under the table, give my hand a squeeze. I'm here, right? That's
right.
That's all I needed. That's all I needed. We don't have to stop what we're doing and talk about it. Just little ways of support can be so important. I've got a thing based on some trauma that I've got. I do not respond well when someone sneaks up behind me.
I'm the same way. I can't stand it.
I can't. It takes me. It's not like it makes me mad because of how scared I get for that split second. You know what I mean? It makes me very, very mad. Yeah. So that, having people that have your back, even if it's one out of every 10 times this is going to happen to me, that somebody would be like, see somebody sneaking and being like, don't do that, please.
Exactly. It's almost like that what you call, not a therapy dog.
It's it's kind of like a service animal. Exactly.
Service animal.
Yeah. It's kind of like a service animal. Like, hey, it's not a good idea. Yeah. Oh man.
Oh boy.
So I wanna ask you, Reggie, what are your goals for the future, professionally, personally, in terms of advocacy for vets? What do you want to do?
Wow, that's a lot rolled up in that, like a fruit roll up.
That's it.
That's a fruit roll up. I would say professionally wise or commercial, continue helping small business owners and veteran small business owners to achieve their business when looking to buy or sell real estate. Continue doing that and become a bigger proponent in my community of education for them. And I will say the next thing I would say personally is just make a bigger impact in my family. Like I said, my wife, kids, whatever case and be, just showing them I'm an example. I'm doing what I have to do to lead by example for them, that they can see that, hey, dad is making it happen, not just talking it, but he's walking that walk. And it's not necessarily have to be a monetary thing. Yeah, money's great, but at the end of the day, if you pass before your time, what will you be remembered for? And I always live that every day. If I die right now, let's say today is my last day, what will I be remembered for? It won't be I had, commercial real estate on my belt. It won't be, hey, I was a veteran. Like, who did I serve? Who did I help along the way?
That's it.
That's all that matters in the end of the day.
That's such an important thing. You are the legacy you leave behind through the people that you help and the people that you have an impact on. I'm spending the month at every opportunity that I get saying the name of a woman named Keely Rich, who was an agent here at eXp Realty, who touched a lot of people, who was a shining beacon of light, someone who had such a profound impact on more people than I can count on all my fingers and toes. Everybody that I know professionally and work with has been touched by Keely Rich. And she just passed away last month. And
Yeah.
we're going to do everything we can to make sure her name gets said everywhere. Her name is going to be said on stage at eXpCon this year. It's going to be, and that right there is an impactful life.
Mm-hmm. It really is. And then you keep her energy going, and people feel that, and people start, you know what? Let me make sure I'm doing that, right? Let me make sure I'm leaving a positive impact for people to see.
That now, now the way that I've seen people take on this mission of saying Keely's name has really inspired me, the kind of life that I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what we're here for. Listen, we always end these episodes with one question we ask every single body. If somebody said to you, Reggie, it's my first day at eXp Realty, what advice do you have for me?
I will tell you this. We are down to earth people. Come and check us out. That's all I'll tell you. Come check us out. See what we do. Come check out eXp Military Network. See what we're about. We're down to earth people. We're more than just, selling homes and selling commercial properties. We are just like you in this everyday walk of life. We have our own struggles that we deal with too. But at the same time, we learn how to become champions in our lives over the situation.
Mm-hmm. That is, listen, we are sitting at a pretty 100% record of answers to that question that all boil down to this. Find your tribe.
Right? That's right.
Find your people.
That's right.
And you will succeed.
That's right.
Listen, Reggie, this has been so good. Thank you so much for taking the time out with us today. I know you're on vacation out here. You're living your best life. You pulled some time away for us. We did this episode even though I look like a full lobster because of Memorial Day weekend. But thank you so much for coming.
Hey, thank you, Cody. Appreciate you.
All right. And we will see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of CultureCast. If you have time, please be sure to scan the QR code on screen now to leave us a review on Glassdoor.